Welcome to Out with Dan, the podcast that spotlights and examines the voices of LGBTQ+ authors, characters, and our allies. Together, we lift our voices and we tell our stories. I'm Dan White. Join me as I chat with this week's author. Hello and welcome back to Out with Dan. Today I'm so excited to talk to Taleen Voskuni about Sorry Bro, her debut novel. Welcome, Taleen.
Thank you, Dan. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I love a romance novel, and I love a romance novel that gives me something new. So this book gives me several new things. First of all, it gives me an Armenian slant or an Armenian story. You are Armenian, is that correct?
I am.
Wonderful. And is that where our slant comes from? I mean, I assume it is, but tell us how you got to that.
Oh, very much so. It's this book is a lot of my lived experience, especially as an Armenian American in the diaspora community here. I grew up, in the diaspora community. I went to Armenian school for 10 years. It was my whole world, this tiny, tiny school. So that's all I knew. So a lot of that has painted my life, like who I am. And I finally, with this book, decided to write about it. I never really, I'd never written about it before. So I had a lot to say. there was a lot. And I brought as much of it as I could in this book. And I find that there's still more I have to say about the Armenian experience. So I have more books coming out about that. But this one covered a lot.
It does, but it covers it with such love. It's one thing, and this is something I mentioned to a lot of people who write about romance. You write about the Armenian family and its unit, and you write about it lovingly. And you have members of the family who are supportive. Some are not supportive, but you treat them with grace and respect. And that, as a reader, is something that's very interesting. Of course, I love Nar's mother. It's just, she is adorable.
I feel like she steals the show in the scene she's in.
She does. I think a lot of times, especially mothers who want the best for their children, or we can say domineering mothers, whichever one fits the shoe, But I think that they do steal the show because that is children. That's who impresses us.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they're who we're looking to. They're who we're trying to, do all this for. And Nar, even though she's an adult, in many ways still a young adult, she's thinking about her mom all the time. What's mom gonna think? What's mom gonna think? It's always back there.
I do love that, and I love the fact that when we start out the story, we see that Nora is working with Diana, her cousin, on her cousin's wedding. And I do know how very important a wedding is to the Armenian community. Everyone shows up for it.
Yes. And I've been a maid of honor 3 times. So I brought a lot of that into the book as well. And yeah, Armenian weddings are a ton of fun. Big, loud events, which are great, very memorable.
Yes, it's not like some Southern weddings, which are sort of quiet and everybody behaves. It is not that way at an Armenian wedding. There's dancing and music and everybody's invested in it. And I love that.
Yes.
So the other thing that you bring to this book, which was a new experience for me, was bisexuals being front and center. Bisexuals appear in a lot of books, and I love that, but you brought them front and center, and that was something that was very important for me as a reader as well. How did that come about?
Yeah, that also is part of my lived experience, and something I wanted to explore in this book is the experience of a not out bi woman who's been passing as straight this whole time, which I don't know if I'd really read something quite like that before, but I think it's pretty common. And I wanted to just show how that feels, how, there's this quote unquote easier way out. You could just keep passing as straight, marry this man, go on with it and just always kind of hold this other part of yourself tightly and not bring it out. But there's something that wants to come out, like even, and that's what the whole book is. Nar can't, once she meets Yerebuni, that's it for her. She realizes she can't go back. Like she's passed over. She doesn't want to go back to hiding. She loves this woman, a quick, kind of quick love at first sight sort of thing. But it's worth it to her then to, potentially hurt her family, potentially lose her family. She doesn't know what's going to happen, and she has to press on in that way. So I did want to bring bisexuality to the forefront, like have the parts with men, have parts with women, and show, what that really could feel like.
And I thought that was very beautiful. I also really, for me, again, as the reader, it was so beautiful to see Nar discovering herself, but not with pressure, which
Mhm.
is really a beautiful thing in life. It doesn't always happen that way, but here's someone who comes into her own, and she's happy with coming into her own.
Yeah. Yes, her journey it's yeah, she finds these 2 parts of her identity at once, the Armenianness, which she'd kind of shrugged off for so long and ignored and thought, I want to be American, like my dad who's wants to be a country club guy and all that. And she falls back in love with her Armenianness, and then she also embraces her bisexuality too at the same time. And yeah, comes upon her in a very, loving way. You're right. Like she enjoys the Armenian events. She falls in love with a woman. There's a lot of like that type of hugging in this book.
And that was fun as a reader, because I felt like she really was discovering so much about herself that she already knew was inside, but she was sort of letting it out, and
Yeah.
letting it out in a fun way.
Yes, realizing how much of a part it is in her, and also just how much she's enjoying it, how much she could enjoy her Armenianness, and how freeing it feels to not hide your bisexuality.
Yes. And Arabuni is such a free spirit and such a loving spirit. And that is something that I embraced as well. I thought that was so well done.
Thank you. She was a lot of fun to write. I mean, she's dream woman. If anything, her only flaw is maybe she's a little too perfect. So I had to give her some like angst, like artsy angst with like wanting to be as good of an artist as her mother. But that was about it. But she was great. Her like loving patience. I modeled some of my own partner's loving patience, off of her.
I like that. I like that. I will say that just the title of the book, Sorry, Bro, I find to be humorous. And when bro actually comes up in the book, which it comes up a few times, I will say that every time, as in real life, I laugh right out loud, because
Oh.
it is something it's something that some guys really feel the need to bond with other men, and also make sure everyone in the room knows that they're straight. And so, of course, that was so much fun to me.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's so, so true. It's this like safe word that you can use to show that you care though, but you're still, don't worry.
That's
And
right.
it's such an interesting word because to me, Armenians have really adopted it. Like the Armenian Americans that I know really liberally use bro, but it's pronounced bro for them, bro. Um, and I think it's that same, like Armenians are very close, warm people.
Yes.
So I think that's part of it, is like bringing you in with the bro. So I did want to include that in the title.
And I do want to sort of pat Armenians on the back for a moment, because what you just said is something that I've experienced time and time again. Of the Armenian people that I know, I have some for clients and some for friends. They're very warm and loving people, and they're very welcoming people. All of my clients know I'm gay. I don't hide it. I don't really think anybody's ever fooled, but but I find that my clients, whether they're gay or straight, or in friends the same way, they're very loving and warm. And that's a very nice thing to say about people, I think.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think when people have had a lot of hardships, it's important to like stick together first, but also then like show that kindness to others. Like I don't know, there is something something genetically when when you've been through something, you're like, I don't want anyone to feel the way I've felt. So there,
I agree with you. And so that brings up something that we talked about a little bit before we started recording, is history. So, as with the Armenian genocide and the Holocaust, gay rights, Black history, there are things in our past that are very important. And there are things that also that past sort of dictates or molds where we are in today's world. Will you give a little bit of thoughts to that or history and share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. And this also appears in Sorry Bro too. The Armenians faced the Armenian genocide of 1915 at the hands of the Ottoman Turks. Many Armenians were living in Turkey at the time because that used to be Armenia. It was historic Armenia. So there's huge, huge Armenian communities that were um, driven out and just also murdered in very brutal ways. There's been a lot of tragedy, and there's been tragedy for centuries before that too, but that is a more recent and more systematic, uh, massacre, and it has not been recognized by Turkey. That is where the problem really lies. So it has not been recognized by Turkey. It's been denied by Turkey, and on top of that, if you even bring it up in Turkey, that's a crime punishable. Like
Mhm.
you'll go to jail for that. The United States had not even recognized the Armenian genocide until recently, when President Biden did, and Congress also passed a resolution recognizing it. So there's been a lot of unrequited. Um, Feelings with Armenians of this thing happened in the past, but we can't move on because it still hasn't been acknowledged. And of course, acknowledgement has so many repercussions, reparations, who knows what else. But the thing is that it does still play a part in the future. Armenia is still situated between two neighbors, Turkey and Azerbaijan, that want to wipe it out, not so subtly. Like they say that politicians will openly state this, and Armenia, sometimes I wonder how long it's going to be around. So something that happened over 100 years ago still, has effects in the future. And Nada in the book also realizes this. One of the things she says way at the beginning is, "Oh, can't we just have one conversation with Armenians without recognizing, talking about the genocide?" And yet Abuni really like gently corrects her about that. And over the course of the book, a couple things happen that help Nar realize that, wow, this is not just something in the past written down in a history book that we can move on from. It still has repercussions in the present.
I agree with you. And I think that when we look at the queer world as well, I think some younger people say, okay, we've heard about Stonewall and not just Stonewall.
Mhm,
And everyone's experience is different.
mhm,
Stonewall was not a genocide. So
mhm,
let me be very clear that I'm not comparing the two, but
mhm.
it is a struggle. And
Yeah,
it is a struggle that it impacts our current day life. And it is something we do have to talk about and something we have to acknowledge. And we have to say, this is part of our history and this is where we are today and hopefully where we go tomorrow.
yes, absolutely. Things aren't perfect yet.
No,
Like things have changed so much and for the better. It's wonderful, but there's more, a lot more to be done.
that's absolutely right. And a positive thing about Armenia, so with the opening of each chapter comes an Armenian proverb, which
Mhm.
I simply loved because
Oh,
it was something fun. It was something grounded, and some of those gave me a hint of what might be coming in that chapter, and some did not. I did
yeah.
want to mention one that she is an honest girl, and how do I know? Her mom confirms it.
Like, that's an actual proverb that my people have.
But they were so cute. Did you have a favorite one?
Oh, I love a couple like, the funny one I like the most is, "I like him as much as I like the smoke in my eyes." So, so good,
I love that. And then,
yeah.
pull a thread and you get a thousand patches fall off. And
Oh, yeah.
those little things are so cute and they're so meaningful. It
Yeah.
really is true. That one
Mhm.
thread you pull. But that is, of course, what you hope every author does is
Right.
finds a thread to
Yeah.
pull it so we will fall into it. And I think that's exactly what you've done with Sorry Bro.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's a beautiful metaphor. That's right, we create one tiny problem that cascades, all these other ones.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just want you to know how very much I enjoyed it. I love romance novels, and it was just so much fun.
Thank you so much, Dan. That's just so kind of you to say. I had a lot of fun writing it, so I'm glad that
Good.
came through.
Are you working on something new? I know you haven't been out very long, but most authors are always working on something.
I am. I have another book coming out with Berkeley in July, I believe, 2024, called Lavash at First Sight. And that's another sapphic romance. So this one takes place in Chicago. And this time the parents are longtime rivals and enemies of the two women that fall in love.
I love it. I love it. I look forward to that just as well. Do you have social media or a website you'd like to share?
Sure, yeah, I'm on social media as Taleen Author on Instagram, Taleen Voskuni on Twitter, and then yeah, my website's taleenvoskuni.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining me. I had such a great time, and I wish you the very best of success with Sorry Bro.
Oh, I had a great time too, Dan. Thank you again.
Thank you. Hang on for me just a moment. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Out with Dan. You can find more information about this podcast and its host at outwithdan.com, on Twitter at OutWithDan, and on Instagram and Facebook at Go Out with Dan. This podcast is hosted by Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, and the theme music is provided by bensound.com. Join us again soon for the next episode of Out with Dan.